There you go.
All right, man. Man, I am excited about today. I basically rearranged my whole schedule, and you did the same for me because we did not want to break our streak of recording live weekly. For I think we're now at 20. This is week 25. So congratulations.
I like it. I got my coffee out. I think it's good. Hopefully, people will join us on their way to work or sitting in the parking lot at work before they go in and have to deal with real life, and we can give them some info of what's going on.
Yeah, for sure, man, for sure. So thank you again for being flexible. Thank you all to that listen. That I know we've been getting a lot of good feedback. So share this with somebody. Maybe try. And we try to be consistent about being live on Thursday or Friday at some point. Usually it's right after lunch, but this is a special early AM coffee needed episode. So Tim, what's going on new in your world?
Not too much in my world necessarily. We're in the heat of summer, so I definitely think we should talk about leasing a little bit. But I think we should start. We got 2 lawsuits this week that came up that I think are important to talk about first before we go into any necessary other things.
All right, man. Let's hear it. What do you? Maybe this is new to me too, even.
All right, cool. So the first one is we have our first actual case law, or whatever you want to call it, in the Logan Square. What is it? Northwest Housing.
Yep, Preservation Act.
Act.
Yep.
So we got our first. We got our first lawsuit. It looks like so it's a couple things that are happening, and you know what I like about lawsuits. Not being part of them, obviously, but I like when other people get them. Because Illinois and Chicago specifically have this great way of writing the most broad thing possible. And we don't actually know exactly how it has to be done or what has to be done or where the false step is. So we're finally getting someone suing. We'll see how this pans out. We're finally getting someone suing, and hopefully we'll get some guidance from the judges of how they're going to look at this, what kind of fines they're going to levy, et cetera. But it was in Logan Square, and
for real fast, the Preservation Act, for anyone that doesn't know, put a set of standards on for landlords or or even owner-occupied landlords. Maybe you're a self-managing owner-occupant, a set of rules you have to follow in order to sell your property, which includes notice that you're thinking about selling, notice that you got a contract, and this is information you have to share with your client. We won't go into all the details of it, but this is a process now that could add up to 120 days, and this is in majority of this Preservation Act that came out last year is in Logan, and some of it's in the surrounding community as well too, but pretty much all of Logan.
It's the 606 predominance of the block district. That's what they're calling it. It's Logan Square, Avondale, Hermosa, Humboldt Park, and Westtown. And I know you didn't want to go into it, but it's pretty quick. You got to give 30 to 60 days, depending on the size of the building, before you list it, to give the intent to sell and to give the tenants the chance to say, hey, we want to buy it. And then there is a catch for tenants that if they do buy it, which makes it where it's going to be, who's going to buy these? No one's going to buy these properties. So it's almost a waste of time, because the catch is the property must be maintained as rent restricted affordable housing for 30 years. So if a tenant does buy it, they're now restricted where they can't raise rent or can't make it a profit off of it. So they're going to own this building with the high taxes, with everything going on, and be restricted in what they can actually charge and do. So it'd be a terrible investment for the most part, in my opinion, for most of these, especially younger or people that are tenants and don't have a lot of money to withstand the 30 years to have the building. I think it'd be terrible. But anyways, lawsuits come in. They're saying 2 things, and something that I actually didn't realize as part of the law came up too. But one is they're saying that they weren't given the full 60 days or 30 days to show intent, and they're also saying that they were non-renewed. And that's the part that I wasn't familiar with as much of how it was going to be read. But if part of that law says that, hey, you cannot, because you're going to sell the house, you can't non-renew the tenant and try to deliver it vacant. It also has made it illegal to, in the contracts, to say that you're going to deliver a property in that area vacant to a seller if it's occupied.
What's the writing around? And maybe you don't know this, but I'd be curious. This is the first I've heard about. You can't move people out and deliver it because it's actually the neighborhood's best interest, because if you're going to have a 1 to 4 unit building where a buyer can get FHA and take possession and move into one of the units, it's obviously easier to show. That will actually get you a higher dollar amount value as well too in a sale price compared to a conventional buyer.
So if you watched last week with us, if not, go back and watch it. But we talked about the just eviction laws that Mayor Johnson's trying to pass. It's very similar to that, right? So if you don't have one of those specific reasons, meaning that they haven't broken a lease, don't have a lease violation, or they haven't paid rent, or they've paid rent, I should say. If you can't evict them for loss of rent, and you can't evict them for lease termination. From the point that you have the intent to sell, you cannot evict them or end their lease or give them any kind of lease. And vacancy delivery or clearouts are now deemed illegal. So yeah, you need property damage, illegal activity, or non-payment of rent. So from the time that you say, "Hey, I'm going to sell the building," you can't. And this part, the law stipulates that new buyers are prohibited from vacating current tenants for at least 6 months after the sale closes.
Wow, those are some details that I didn't realize were out there. Wow,
I'm in the same spot. I mean, I think we get the headlines a lot, and I'm gonna have to start reading these laws more like I did the Johnson one, where I just get the full 80 pages and just try to dissect it, because some of these highlights, they don't hit the big things, and these attorneys are going around and finding that. So it could be anywhere from $200 to $1,000 a day fine for the violation. So if he had it listed 90 days ago, 90 times 200, 180,000, something like that lawsuit. So it could be a big step.
Where this will be starting to create issues is you're going to all of a sudden have law firms that will start. If law firms if attorneys have the ability to get attorney fees paid by sellers or in negotiations, then you're now going to have law firms that will pop up similar to security deposit and start looking and promoting this. So, if you go to put your 12 flat up and my law firm's able to see that, I can then send it to your 12 tenants. Like, hey man, did you get the proper notice? If you didn't, you could probably get rights to X amount of dollars or something like that. So you're going to start seeing stuff like that, which is the scary part.
Yeah. I think here's the other thing that I think that these, you can say, hey, a lot of times it's not worth the squeeze, because these landlords that have these buildings, because these could be a 2 flat, right? This could be a 2 to 4 unit building, or even a single family house if it's rented out in these areas that now exist in this, which is, I only brought that up because in Woodlawn, they have a very similar law that they passed in 2020, but that only is 10 units or more. So I think, you might say, hey, this guy's probably selling, is probably retired, probably doesn't have a whole lot of money. Can I even, he had a mortgage on it. Can I even get that money from him? But I think the big play here, Compass was involved with this, right? And they're named in the lawsuit. If these agents from companies like Compass or Century 21 or these, Berkshire has a lot of money, they're not going anywhere financially. There's big paydays at the end of this, especially if you think about it. If this lawsuit drags out for 6 months, which most lawsuits do, it's $1,000 a fine a day. As a tenant, you're better off dragging out the lawsuit.
Yeah, it hasn't came up yet, and it has been contested. But at some point, somebody with deep pockets, there's a property rights element to this that I'm curious about. Anyone that's way smarter than me would be able to take. No different than the property rights around Section 8 and the freedom to choose and all that type of stuff. The government controlling how you run your property, like that. I know it's a huge tap into capitalism, and it's a shame that we have to have these conversations. But there is opportunity with some of this because I think if you know how to play it and you play the game the right way, there's a lot of other people. I know my co-host on the other podcast, Tom, he likes buying in that area still, and he plans on holding a long time. If he's got to sell it, he's like, I don't care, I'll follow the rules. But I probably just wouldn't want to deal with it. So it will help certain people create more opportunity, but then mostly because it builds a moat.
Yeah, I think, right, we're both property managers, and I think the reason that people do so well in property management is because no one wants to do the job, right? No one wants to get yelled at by tenants for 8 hours a day. Then on the third party side, then we get yelled at by the owners for getting yelled at by the tenants. And then on top of that, you're in shit and toilets and all that stuff. But it's really, to your point, it's the places people don't want to go. That's going to decrease the value. That's going to make it where you can make more money off of it. But what it really does is it makes the timeline and patience have to be there, right? I used to do in 2015, 2014, when I first got into real estate, I specialized in short sales, right? And a lot of that stuff, you could get great deals. The problem is it'd be terrible if you were trying to buy it to live in it, because you didn't know if you were closing in 90 days or 2 years.
Yeah.
But at some point you would close and you get a really good deal. You just didn't know when.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a very similar thing. One point before we move on to the next one that I want to make, and this is the weird part. So Woodlawn has had a similar law, and that was actually the first one that came out in 2020. It's a little bit different because it's 10 plus units only, and there's some other stuff there. I'm very surprised that we haven't seen anything there come up before. And then it did extend a little bit outside of Woodlawn, closer to the Northwest law. That's a couple surrounding areas. So if you're a brokerage or if you're a seller, just make sure that you're reading up on this and checking your area if it's in there before you list to sell. Cool. Second one, if you we talked about this as one of our first things. We pointed at the reason that we're getting attacked so hard on a lot of these fees, and Illinois created that law and all that stuff. It really comes down to the original GreyStar lawsuit. After settling in May, they're already being sued again.
Wow. Who's suing them this time? It's not Justice Department, though, is it?
No, this is tenant rights, and I don't know exactly the company or whatever that's doing it, but it is a Section 8, what you brought up, of that we are trying to fight, or there are people trying to fight in other states, although I haven't seen any in Illinois, but they are getting sued. They filed suit in 11 states, surprisingly Illinois not being one of them. But I think we don't have too much GreyStar compared to other people, right? I would assume.
Yeah, I believe they have only a single, lower single-digit percentage of their portfolios here in Illinois.
Yeah, so California, Hawaii, Maryland, Michigan, New Jersey, Virginia, and Washington, D.C., they were filed suit for discriminating against Section 8 vouchers. Man, this is great. I mean, this was basically a sting operation, right? So the company that did it, or whoever you want to call it, the regulators, and I don't think it's federal. I don't think it was like the government doing it. I think it was Housing Rights Initiative. So it's a nonprofit organization that put this together. They put together a sting, basically. So they recorded calls for over a period of time where they called all their buildings and said, "Hey, I have a voucher. Do you accept it?"
Oh my gosh.
The oldest trick in the book, right? They failed. Not only, and I think this is the problem that people are especially because the new way HUD wrote the rule book for this when Biden was in. This is where people get tripped up, because 10 years ago, I think we all were under the assumption and under the agreement that, hey, if a tenant doesn't meet our credit score, that we require market tenants, or if a tenant doesn't meet 3x the rent, that we can still deny them. And that's no longer the case. So their leasing agents were taught to say, hey, we don't, your voucher, unfortunately, your credit score is not high enough, or unfortunately, you don't make, if it's $2,000 apartment, you're not making $6,000, and you can't do that any longer, because the guidelines from HUD now state that, hey, you have to say that the government is paying the rent, and the government definitely makes more than 3x what you're renting for.
Yeah, but you could do it based on their portion still, correct?
No, because the portion is reviewed and monitored and approved by HUD. So if they lose their thing, if they lose their job, HUD pays the full thing. If they get a raise, HUD moves. So that portion amount, we've had tenants that have had their portion change 8 times in a year. If they get a raise and then they get a raise, they have to pay more, and then they lose that job somehow. Because somehow, anytime one of my tenants has to start paying more, they quit their job the next week and then go back down to zero, and then get a.
Yeah, but the thing that we deal with on the street level is that takes time for them to go back from pay. They get adjusted up to $400 a month, and now all of a sudden they quit and they have no income, and they tell you they got no income, and now for them to get back to the I have no income level and paying that just $32 a month could take 4 to 6 months sometimes.
Oh, you don't have to tell me the system's stupid.
Yeah, no, it's more for everybody else. It wasn't for you, like, but I was just pointing out the reality of it because
the reality
you just said sounds so sexy. And it's like, oh my God, this is the perfect plan. It's like, yeah, no, it does work. It's just a little slower, the timelines of that actually being effective.
We're hitting in CHA sometimes right now 60 to 90 days for new tenants, and here's the problem with CHA, and I don't say much about I don't say a whole lot of good things about our government or laws, but the federal law that I think. It's the one that they passed, but then Trump wasn't going to sign it and use it as leverage. But then the Senate actually just got it. What is it called? Where you just get enough votes that you don't need the president? Whatever that's called. Sorry. As much as I know about politics, I don't know the actual ins and outs of how they work very well. But but that law actually states that the voucher programs need to start giving the rent amount up front. So they can't make you wait 60 days and then go, okay, here's your rent, $600 under, which, like we talked about last week, that I've been seeing a lot. I just talked to another management company too that was having the same issue where they're getting $300, $400 lower than what they should be getting. That's
beautiful. In Cook County, HACC actually started doing that last year, where it's like submit paperwork, and it still takes about a week to get that call, but you get rent determination, which was what that's called, right away, and that's beautiful. Because now it's like, all right, I'm all in. Let's move fast. We'll do everything. Yeah. You actually get excited about that because I feel in the past, I've ran our lease department over the years a handful of times, and it's like you just kind of hold your breath. I'm like, I got to deal with the inspection. I got to deal with this. Was this even worth it? But it's like, man, you could be all in once you know that dollar amount.
Yeah, and Cook County really, if you can do math, you don't even need to wait.
Yeah, Cook County's not bad.
All you have to do, they have the sheet. You look at the zip code, you get the amount, and then you go to their sheet for utility allowance, and it tells you exactly what to subtract for what utilities you're having the tenants pay, and that's the rent offer you're going to get. They don't look at, hey, this house is nicer than that house. They look at number of bedrooms and the voucher amount. As long as the voucher amount that the tenant has matches the number of bedrooms that you're looking at.
And you can get that from their moving papers. On their moving papers, it does say what bedroom size they have. So if you're collecting that information, it's you could go to that sheet and then you could go in and look at the utility. So it is definitely a lot cleaner.
No, for sure. Cool. So I think that's it scares me just because GreyStar is such a big company that this is going to be another landmark lawsuit, just like the one was before. And because of that, we're seeing all these new laws, especially across blue states like Illinois, that are banning junk fees, et cetera. And Chicago's now, it's just funny that Johnson's I just saw his approval rating they did a poll on should he rerun, and it's at like 14%, which either means that he's going to be pushing even harder to get this, to try to get his approval rating up, which could be bad, or these aldermen are going to be smart enough to know not to hitch their wagon to this horse.
Yeah.
And hopefully that's what the route it goes, that no one's going to get bullied by him, knowing that he's probably not back next year. But yeah, that's a huge thing.
Man, I remember thinking when Lightfoot was in there, I'm like, man, it can't be that much. It can't get worse than this. And it's like, oh man. Now that was coming off the Emanuel administration. I'm having fun watching all the videos of Emanuel out there on social media, basically getting ready to potentially run for president. So I'd be happy with that.
Yes.
What? So it's hot out. It's hot as hell. AC. Like how? Some of your units don't even have AC. You got window units, or you make the tenants provide. Like what have you guys been dealing with here these last? I was in Dallas for the World Cup, and I looked at the weather, and I actually saw I had my local weather here in Chicago pulled up on accident, and it was actually hotter here than it was in Dallas in July.
Yeah, it's been hot. Luckily, I mean, like we said before, luckily we got ahead of a lot of these systems, and in this, we had an unusual warm May, which I think gave us the opportunity. It wasn't 100 degrees, but it was in the 80s, so everyone was running their AC. So we got a lot of those calls early in May before this super hot streak. I think the biggest issue we have had this week has just been we have a commercial space where the AC's on its last leg. So we got it up and running and temporary fix, but it's probably gonna have to be replaced. And I think that's something. I mean, all these systems. This is a good thing to talk about for investors. All these systems have expected lives, right? So if you're buying a unit or a property that has a furnace that's 17 years old, even if it's working fine, you got to start budgeting that. Hey, it's going to go out. It's a 20-year lifespan. If you do really well, it might last 23, 24 years, 25 maybe. But if you get that extra year, it's great. It's gravy. But to not have the money put aside when you know it's that old, it is just playing with fire, I think.
Yeah, I think how we frame it here always is in the sales or the upfront process or the early on, the first walkthrough. It's like, hey, man, you're going to get a call from me one of these mornings, and I don't care how you pay for it. I don't care if you got cash. I don't care if you got to put it on your credit card. Like, we're not gonna have an option but to do this, like especially with furnaces and ACs, you might be able to buy yourself a few days. But even then, and we talk about this here in a second, how ACs have becoming more of an essential utility than it used to be in the past, and I could see some stuff passing with that in the future. But we try to have that conversation. Listen, your hot water heater, you're on borrowed time at this point. It's 13 years old, and even for us, if we're taking over a condo like in the city, and it's like, hey, listen, man, there's no plate underneath it, there's no catch plate under the hot water heater. Let's get it switched out. $1,500, whatever it might be, just so we don't have to deal with that insurance claim when it leaks for the 4 floors below you. So
yeah,
but AC is something that governments or we talk about these laws and all that stuff, blue states, whatever. The ability for them to come in and mandate AC, like it's becoming one of those things that people could call 311 on. Just similar to as they used to be able to call 311 when they were if their heat goes out. So what's kind of your take on that? Where do you think that's going?
So I think it's going to get worse for I'll say a while, because if a furnace can last 20 years and a condenser can last 15 years or 20, I don't know exactly depending on the condenser, but we have the Freon law, and then there's another law about furnaces. I don't know if we've talked about this one before, but I think it was passed last year. But the way furnaces and AC condensers have to hook up now, if you get a new furnace, your old condenser is probably not going to work with it.
The compatibility, it goes out the window. Yep.
So I think over the next 10, 15 years, we're going to have a lot of people with sticker shock, because when one goes out, they're going to be like, well, my condenser's only 8 years old. Well, yeah, it doesn't work with the furnaces that are eco-friendly, and I think they actually did it because of carbon monoxide leaks, and it prevents them from happening, but. We're going to get a lot of sticker shock, I think, over the next 10, 15 years for investors, because they realize that something that goes out that they may have been planning on also now is going to force them to spend another $3,000 or $4,000 for an AC condenser that they weren't expecting, because it's only 8 years old.
Yeah, we've had that on the flip side already. Some of the newer AC units aren't becoming compatible with the 20-year-old furnace. So it is definitely, and the problem is those prices aren't going down either. So I know for us, we're trying to make sure that we got 3 or 4 awesome vendors we work with here that we try to lock in those pricing. And what do you have a preferred vendor, or not vendor, brand of furnace that you guys like, or AC, or do you guys just go with the cheapest?
Not the cheap. We're not going to Home Depot and buying them. I think we put in probably a lot of Reams is probably the number one that our HVAC vendors use. But it's gonna really come down to the size and the price at the time. And the other part of it, right, is some of these things right now, things that HVAC vendors just had like 10 of in their garage because the supply house has 100 of them, are becoming harder and harder to find. So there's been days where I got to wait 2 days for my HVAC guy to go get a part because it's coming up from Southern Illinois because the warehouse doesn't have them. So I think that's going to increase prices too.
Yeah, that's it's at the size we're at now as a management company, and the size you're growing into be, or even some of these self managers that have their own maybe they have 400 or 500 units, it's tough to bring that HVAC guy in on the payroll, right? You always want to try to control your costs and in-house it if you can. And but it's right there, the whole parts and the access to parts, and then some of the licensing. It's so hard to bring that on. I know we've tried in the past, and we've struggled, or they can only do a limited amount of the scope, because once it comes down to parts or access to them, it's tough.
Yeah, no, I definitely think that's true. I mean, I think a good partnership, I'll say this with ours, because we have in-house maintenance. Our HVAC guy will run through stuff with our tech. So if our tech's there and notices, hey, this is broken, they can call him up. And if it's something that's like, sometimes the fix is literally like, hey, reset this. Or, hey, since you're there already, let's, like a lot of these furnaces, if you guys don't know, if you look through, there's a little glass piece on the bottom that you look through, and it's got a blinking light. That blinking, well, if it's broken, it has a blinking light. Hopefully it has a solid light. But if something's broken, it has a blinking light, and it's actually Morse code to what part is out. It's not Morse code actually, but you know what I mean? It's
yeah,
to tell you what's out. So, our techs can call our HVAC guy, because of the relationship we have, and say, hey, it's blinking. It's this model. It's blinking 3 times, pausing, long, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And he goes, okay, I need to grab this part, and I'll be over there. So I think having that relationship helps. We haven't brought it inside either.
For sure. Our guy, Jeff, who, if you remember, he's the gentleman you met on the riverboat in New Orleans. But when I was making my comment, I was thinking about Washington specifically, that they have these orders that require cooling solutions where, like, even if you have a 100-year-old building and their housing stock's not as old, but you have to have, you as a landlord, you have to maintain cooling systems.
It's funny. I think a lot of people, as much as we talk about how, we talked about earlier, the investing in Chicago, it's a little bit it's definitely tenant leaning and everything, for sure. But I think, everyone always talks about California, New York. California, man, it's getting it used to be number 1 tenant friendly state. It's probably dropping into like it's still in the top 10 for sure, but it's probably not the top 5 anymore. New York City is, but not the state itself. Illinois definitely is in that top 5. Washington is,
Oregon, Colorado now is getting pretty great. But it might not be the whole state. It ends up being some of these bigger cities. So Denver is the one.
Yeah.
The crazy thing that California that always blows my mind of how you could ever make money on larger scale is you have to have a on-site property manager for, I think it's anything over 18 units or 12 units. Like that's crazy. So got another comment up here. If you're self-managing your rental units, where do you go for advice and resources to help manage them effectively?
You're already here. We're here every week. But honestly, I think the REI community in Chicagoland, if you are in Chicagoland, is amazing. And sorry, REI being real estate investors groups, whether the MBOA or there's some other ones that are associated with what's the guy out of Downers Grove? I can't think of his name right now. Andrew Holmes. There's a lot that you just meet, and when you go to these events, when you go to these events and you're meeting other people in the same situation. And Alejandro, I saw your other one. Drop in what area you're in. I'd love to see if I know a group that's close to you, that you can, they're at least meeting up once a month. They usually have speakers that are going to drop information, whether it's an eviction attorney or, anything like that, or just a leasing agent or something that can drop information on you. And then the real value, I think, of any meetup like that or any conference, which I think Mark, isn't even the content. It's just walking around and seeing stuff like that. So there you go. Mark's got the whole link there.
So he's on the south side. So I put in the link there. If straightupchicagoinvestor.com, there's probably about 20 different meetups on there. Obviously, you have all the online resources, Straight Up Chicago, Straight Up Chicago Facebook club, or whatever we call it, club. And there's a bunch of other great Chicago landlord Southwest.
I know MBOA has the Southwest. If you go onto the Chicago Friendly Landlord Facebook page,
that's one. Yeah,
that's the Southwest one. And then I'm part of one. scores up in. I mean, it might be a hike if you're actually in the city, but it's not too bad. There's people that come out from like the north side, so they're driving an hour for it. But in Frankfurt, that has once a month over there that we could drop the link to as well.
But I'll tell you this, Tim. I don't know how you do it, but I probably get 10 texts a week, just from small landlords doing it themselves, just asking me questions, and that's perfect. That's exactly what you're probably looking for, and I do it as one, just kind of an extension of what we do on the podcasts, and then two, maybe it's some future business, or three, maybe they'll refer us, but. I always tell people you got a guy, right? You should any self-managing real estate investor should have some sort of property manager in their speed dial that they can send a quick text saying, "Hey, I got this from the landlord. What should I do?" And most property managers, I know, Tim, you give your time, I give my time.
100%.
I think just having that texting relationship, and maybe drop Tim a review and say he's awesome. He always helps me out when I need help, and then he's always gonna be happy to respond to your text. So. I think I have that rapport with a bunch of people, and I think that's probably one of the best things. And maybe, Tim, I just set up a new texting relationship for you here with Alejandro.
There you go. No, for sure. I think that's the way the way to go. And shoot me an email. It's Tim at Chicago Style Management. Alejandro. I'll hook you up with anything you need that on the south side, question wise and stuff like that for sure. And yeah, that's like you said. I think it's the. I like like you said, it's future business possibly, but more so, I think as a greater thing, right? Landlords, especially in Chicago with the way that politics are, if we get landlords that don't do the right thing, then the city doesn't just go and attack the bad landlords, they attack everyone. So the more that we can create this community that follows the laws and are good to tenants and fair in a way where they're still making a profit, but not just being slumlords, and we can create that community, the less likely it is that the politicians keep coming after us and making it harder and harder to be profitable. That's the second bottom line. Microphone drop. So, Tim, anything before we wrap here? No, I think it's a good morning episode, and had my coffee, so I'm ready to start the day. So, nothing else on the headlines. All right, great. Some good attendance. Maybe we have to consider changing our time to first thing in the morning if you support that. So we'll see. But listeners, if you have questions, if you want, if you're a small landlord and you want a connection with a property manager, reach out to myself or Tim at any time. You can find us on all the socials. Tim throws his email out there. Mine's out there. My information is very Googleable. So reach out anytime. Appreciate it. If you found value from this here, please share this episode with a friend. Anyone watching this on the that didn't catch us live can watch us recorded on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, or here on Instagram. So we thank you guys for jumping on here, and we'll see you next week.